Amazing, amazing, amazing. Thank you guys all for coming here. I feel like the last panel went a little bit overboard. So, there's quite a few people kind of shifting in and out. So we'll make the most of the time that we kind of have. Christian, thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having me.
When people look at this kind of title, they think a lot of things, right? How is Bitcoin, psychedelics, BCIs, longevity, how are these all interrelated?
Well, like when we talked about it, like first of all, it's like what I'm investing in, but like people always ask like what's sort of the common denominator. And when I look at Bitcoin, I think most people here in the audience hopefully will agree that Bitcoin is kind of a way, freedom in many ways, but one big thing is freedom of government. Like I think we're all libertarians at our core. And if you look, for example, for psychedelics, and by the way, the disclaimer is like it's all about medical use. So background is I'm working on, and I had the idea 10 years ago to bring so-called psychedelics like magic mushrooms, LSD, DMT, which is colloquially called ayahuasca, back into the medical world. So we're not talking about recreational use, that's the disclaimer in Singapore, but as medical treatment for mental health issues. But if you look at them for a broader audience in the potential future, once they're medically approved again, what they really give you is also freedom, mostly from your ego. So one of the ways psychedelics work, while you have a session, colloquially called a trip, your ego, which is your sense of self, and you would maybe think that's all you have, is reduced or with some psychedelics really shut down to zero. And interestingly, something else is in our brain. The question is it fully the brain? Because some people would call it soul, some people would call it subconsciousness, but there is something more there than what you feel every day, normally your ego, which is a much sort of wiser, much more sort of gentle part of yourself, right, which helps people with mental health issues to overcome them, but I think can help every person down the road to sort of lead a very happy life. But simplified said, freedom, it frees you from the tyranny of the ego. So that's the psychedelics. But if you look at longevity, it's very simple. Because I'm a libertarian, I think the ultimate freedom is that we hopefully, and most people here are in an age where I think I can say that, within our lifetime, will be able to decide our own time of death, because we're going to have the opportunity and optionality to live very long. So I founded 2 big biotech companies where we really work on novel treatments. So nothing you can do today. There's a lot of things you can do today to live a healthy lifestyle, to make the most out of your body now, but nothing which is there today will make you live to 200. But I do believe that within the next 10, 20 years, we're going to find new medical treatments, which gradually, it's not going to be a jump from 85 to 200, but which gradually will push life expectancy so that somewhere, what I believe in the next 10, 15 years, we're going to have this one magic year where we win more than 1 year of life expectancy, right, so more than the calendar year we're losing, and then hopefully this can go on for very long, so it gives you the liberty to really live as long as you want, sort of freedom from death, which I also believe someone you want to die. That's my theory. Like, we're going to see it, but like I think people don't want to go on forever, and forever is anywhere long term. But like I think the biggest freedom I want to produce for people is somewhere the freedom to sort of choose when you want to exit sort of that game. And then the third one is brain-computer interfaces. So we own the leading brain-computer interface company in the world. Like, we have people with chips in their brains in 7 years, so way longer than Neuralink. Yeah, and ultimately, I believe, again, we're talking about 10, 20 years, but it's not so long. I'm always saying that my high school reunion was my high school was 25 years ago, and it feels like yesterday. So 20 years is not a super long term, right, in biotech. I think we're gonna be able, with chips in our brain, to completely simulate all sensoric input. So, and the reason why you believe, all of you, that you're sitting in this room watching us is your sensoric input. You're seeing us, you're hearing us, your bum feels the chair, so you maybe feel a breeze of the air conditioning. So in the moment, we will be able, which is going to happen in the next 10, 20 years, to simulate 100% realistic sensoric input you will be able to live in virtual worlds without being able to distinguish them because they're not glasses on your face, whatever, but we project what now your sensoric organs do, we can project directly into your brain. So if some of you might be fans of Ready Player One, the Oasis, like sort of that virtual reality which is indistinguishable from our current perceived reality, will be possible, and that gives you practically a freedom of anything because you can be who you are, you can be in whatever surrounding time, whatever you are. So I think all the stuff we're doing in my investment firm is around that topic, like freedom of, like, again, tyranny of your ego, freedom of death, freedom of sort of being bound to just one body.
Yeah, and taking a step back, you're a serial entrepreneur. You've done this for a very long time. You've done this in a variety of industries, in biotech. You've done this in BCIs. You've done this now in crypto. Kind of taking that leap forward. How do you think about when you're starting a new business, when you're starting a new kind of journey? It seems like the core thesis behind it is freedom. But how do you really take that step forward? How do you gain enough confidence to say, you know what, I'm going to go and own this thing?
I think it's a great question, and it's super hard to answer because, like, first of all, we do two things. So in Apeiron, we're predominantly now, so I started when I was 19, a biotech company, which luckily, because like being an entrepreneur has to do with a lot of luck, became now a 40 billion Nasdaq-listed company. But like, so we're predominantly now an investor. Right. So we have our investment portfolio where we invest in companies from seed to late stage. And when we have a novel idea, so that's the dream example, an idea where I really come up with and say, look, nobody's doing it, and I think it's worthwhile doing it. Psychedelics is the one, like sort of the thing I'm really proud of, like when I had the idea to bring psychedelic back. Now it sounds normal, now we're sitting on a stage, even in Singapore, and talking about the use of psychedelics. So I had actually my first, I have this weird story. I never did any drugs, which, by the way, include alcohol, because I think alcohol is the worst. Like, never
Agreed.
touch alcohol, do a lot of other stuff. Yeah, but I did nothing because I had the luck. I was always very happy, and I don't think I'm dumb. So already when I was 15, 14, I grew up in Bavaria, where alcohol is sort of pushed onto you when you're 13, 14. I was like, something is very right with my brain, so don't jinx it. So till I was like 32, I've never tried anything, no alcohol, and obviously nothing of the bad stuff. And then via a long, really a year-long series of events, too long for that panel now, but I was compelled to try what is colloquially called magic mushrooms. A disclaimer, it was really in a country where it's not recognized. It's not legal, not illegal. It was somewhere in South America where it's still, so if you ever want to try it before we are successful in the Western world, there are great clinics already in Puerto Rico, Mexico, whatever, who in a legal framework offer psychedelic treatments. But I did it in a country with friends, but like I had a good guide, so kind of semi-properly. And it was hands down, so if you want to call it, it was my first drug experience, but I don't like to call psychedelics drugs, they're ancient medicines, and we just forgot them for some decades. But it was hands down the single most important thing, meaningful thing, deepest thing I've ever done in my whole life. And I came out of it and I was like, holy shit, like if it's doing or giving this amount of positivity and sort of kind of add on to my life, which was actually very good anyway, right. I can totally see how these compounds sort of can help people with depression, anxiety, addiction. But at the very end, even if people here, like hopefully, would not say they're depressive or whatever, being a human is fucking complicated. Like we all have issues. And I think psychedelics are an amazing way to connect with, again, I'm personally very spiritual, with our soul, but you can call it subconsciousness, but with the deeper part in you, which is at the end the best sort of advice that you can have. So to your question, I came out of that, and it's very hard to describe, but I just knew it. Like it's not that I don't have a process when I start companies where I'm like, oh, what's cool right now in the world? It was these coincidence, if you want to call it like that. I think I was kind of, by whatever, pushed into that way, but I came out of it and I had this massive conviction. And then I decided, like, this needs to become medically available again. And then literally, this was the one case where every single business partner of mine, from even guys like Peter Thiel, who then invested, but like he did it as a favor. But he was like, look, Christian, this is insane. Like, and literally everybody said, don't do it. You're going to ruin your career. It's an illegal substance, whatever. But I had this conviction, and it turned out it was the right one. And we literally, I think we're going to change the lives of billions of people with mental health issues. But also we kind of changed the perception of it within 10 years, because again, we're sitting here and like at any dinner, and especially the crypto sort of communities, I think, very embracing of psychedelics, which is, even if people don't know it, but like it's based on the work we did, because all the studies brought back the media attention and everything, and here we are.
Yeah, I truly think about your life as a very good example of do what you love and you will really just succeed. And I think in all the various kind of business endeavors you've hit head on, you've had that same kind of mentality of, I'm going to figure this out some way. Some way we're going to make sure that this ends up working out. And I think, emphasizing that you took something that is seen as illicit or black market or something that's kind of seen as a negative light, and you're saying, let's remove all of the bad parts of it, and let's make this a pharmaceutical grade, administered by a health professional kind of therapeutic in the long run, right? What was the process like for that, and how did you think about that when you were kind of hitting it head on? There must have been a lot of roadblocks, right?
Yeah, I mean, at the beginning we were even thinking, should we go the same way like cannabis, like trying to sort of create a political change? But again, because I'm libertarian, I believe the lesser you have to do with politics, the better. So when people ask me, oh, do you need support of politicians or whatever? No, because like I think the right way to do it, to bring it back as a medical product. By the way, side note, that also people can sort of afford it because the healthcare insurance will pay it. So it's a very non-political process. We're doing FDA clinical studies. We're finishing phase 3 for psilocybin, the active ingredient in magic mushrooms. And then we just prove it in a very scientific way, and that will automatically lead then to an approval as a medical product. I think it's just and by the way, that's how humans did it over the last 10,000 years. So it's not that it's a novel idea for psychedelics. The fact is actually that the one time people remember psychedelics was a pretty messed up time, because like I believe the way the 60s and 70s did it, like, oh, I don't know, Timothy Leary throwing psychedelics at events or whatever,
right,
is wrong, because like if you look at, humans have always used psychedelics to become better, for self-improvement, but always in a very rigid, often religious context. And it was very organized, and we kind of just trying to recreate that, and sort of the shamans of the modern times is the therapist next door.
Right. And kind of moving forward to that libertarian conversation, right? You were someone who got into the Bitcoin ecosystem very early days, right? And now you're kind of moving forward in that direction a little bit more. You're attending conferences like these, and I'm really glad to have you here. How do you think about Bitcoin now as being a kind of focus for yourself, or maybe even a Pyron going forward?
But the funny thing is, I'm not super early. I think there are many people here who are much earlier, like it was 2016, 17.
That's pretty early. 2016 is pretty early.
I actually had a very dear friend who I very, very credit for that, Mike Novogratz, was telling me actually over 2 years. And then I really had, it's not exaggerated, I mean, one media outlet made it a very short headline. This is maybe too short. But I was actually musing about all of that, what Mike told me about Bitcoin on a psychedelic trip. And you can do either strong ones, then you go to another realm, or you can do weaker ones. Then it's actually like Google is rumored to do, I don't know if they still do it, but have done board meetings on a very mild dose, because it's really helping you to get your head around very new concepts. And that was kind of the moment in this one trip where I was like, okay, now I get it. Like, and by the way, having said that, maybe one other thing, that most people here are below 30, I guess, but some might go to this sort of old age of 30 or older. So another very important thing psychedelics do, which I just can sort of tell every founder, every investor, and I think that's the two groups who are here, is like as a secondary effect. So you have, if you take enough, you have what is called a trip, like a deep spiritual, mystical, at least very deep experience. But the secondary effect is that the weeks and months after, literally your brain is growing. So it's called neuroplasticity. You create this neuroplasticity. So your brain is literally a tiny bit growing in volume, so in new brain mass, but especially in connectivity. And one of the things which really suck, and we don't talk a lot about, is that roundabout at the age of 30, our brain starts aging. So we think of brain aging normally like, oh, it comes with 80 and people have Alzheimer's, dementia, but like gradually every single year, your brain is becoming more rigid, more stiff, more closed down. Which is very sad because like an open brain, which has a lot of sort of connectivity, and if you do an MRI of a 20-year-old and would give that person like a math problem to solve or a book to read, you would see how the whole brain is lighting up. And if you would do the same exercise every single year, the brain is becoming, again, less rigid, less open all the time, which is associated with creativity, problem-solving ability, power of innovation. So at the same time, when you grow older, like you gain experience, you gain craftsmanship. So what you truly want is the sort of power of, like, say, a 40, 50-year-old brain with all the experience, but coupled with the innovation power of a young brain. So, and that is kind of a secondary effect, which is not really medical, but I'm very sure once, or at least not medical acknowledged, one of my other big topics is I think we have much more things we should think about, like aging, for example, itself as a curable disease than we do. But like what I believe, once psychedelics are approved for depression, whatever, people will seek it out also for other very positive reasons. By the way, who doesn't want to be a bit happier? No matter how much you are, like you always want a little bit more. Like, yeah, and also like I think we did it actually for our portfolio. Like in the last 2-3 years, meaning crypto now is back again, but like time was fucking hard. Like for me as an investor, I was really feeling with all our founders, we have 150 portfolio companies. So what we did, and what I think most of them did appreciate a lot, we organized for all of them in a country where it's legal that they could have a psychedelic session. And winning more than 50 founders took it up, and they really, really profited for it because it gives you just whatever your problem is, if you're stressed, like if you like need more creativity, new ideas in difficult times, it just helps you. So long story short, like I could go on like that, I see the time is up, but like psychedelics I think will change the world narrowly, but it's already more than 1 billion people for mental health issues, but also can really help every founder, every investor, and at the end every person to lead a better, happier, more fulfilled life.
Right, and I think when we talk about psychedelics, right, like bringing it into this world of regulation, bringing it into this world of, you know, being adopted by more than just the people that, because I think it kind of has a similar story to crypto, right, where it's, you know, crypto was used as this illicit thing in the earliest days, and maybe the people who wanted to use it were using it on Silk Road to buy psychedelics, right? You know, so there's that kind of convergence. But now crypto has gone into the mainstream institutional adoption level. We see that the biggest bidders of crypto are no longer native participants, people buying and selling. It's mostly institutions that want it on their balance sheet. So I think we're seeing that kind of progress happen going forward. What's next for you? What's next for, you know, Apiron? What's next for, you know, kind of your vision in terms of, you know, what crypto can kind of mean within the portfolio and you know, broader?
Well, broader, one thing I think which resonates well with the crypto community. The other big stigmatized thing we're taking up is what is colloquially called doping. Yeah, I rather call it performance enhancement. Like, I think we should be free, coming back to freedom,
right,
to design our body as we like. Yeah, why? It's this absurdity that on the one side, we went very far as society and we're like, hey, if you don't feel happy with your gender, you should be able to change it. But on the other side, we're saying at the Olympics, oh, performance-enhancing drugs, like which make you look better, whatever, are not allowed. It's like a very weird thing. So our idea was, which is going to be hopefully and surely the biggest sports events of next year at the end of the year, we're doing something which is called Enhanced Games, which is going to be, think about the Olympics, the same core disciplines, just that performance-enhancing drugs are allowed and endorsed. And we're going to use it as it's going to be a lot of fun, yeah, but as a showcase as well to show what real science, because it's all science-based, and especially longevity science and sports science is very close together, what real science can do to optimize the human body, again, in the freedom as every one of us please. If you want to be, and by the way, the next thing we will, my theory is like we have sort of, we have seen it already with Ozempic, which is like sort of the first really broad enhancement drugs, like made $1 trillion market cap for Novo Nordisk and Lilly. Now comes the muscle stuff, but then we're going to talk about we should be able to be smarter if we want. Like, why are we kept at whatever we start with at birth and so on? In crypto, we have a very interesting project, but it's not ready to be unveiled. We need to do it somewhere in November. But like a very simplified set, but it's much more than that. My co-founder would kill me. It's also a company we started, a Bitcoin layer 2, but it's much more than that. But that's for another conference.
Amazing, amazing. And when we talk about what more can a Pyron and what more can Christian Engelmeyer get into in the future, it's been a real treat to have you here. It's been an amazing time. And I want to kind of leave the audience with one thing, right? How can they learn more about what you're working on next? How can they learn more about which way your entrepreneurial spirit is kind of moving forward to?
Well, I like to talk, meaning obviously I'm here, I like to talk about the things I'm passionate about. So follow me on Twitter, it's my name, the same LinkedIn. I try to do longer pieces on Substack, the same, you find it with my name. And get in touch. And if you're in a country where it's legal, you should give psychedelics a try.
And on that bombshell, thank you so much, Christian.
Thank you, it was amazing. Thank you.